Hello, my name's Kate Judge and I founded the Culture Challenge, a service to help schools engage with creative and cultural services. In this short video, I'm going to show you a few resources that you may find useful as a creative or cultural practitioner working with schools. You do not have to be registered with the Culture Challenge to use them. They're free to be used by anyone. You may want to use them as they are, or you may want to pick and choose what works for you. Either way, I hope you find this video a useful reflective exercise. I will take you through the toolkit in 4 parts. Firstly, we will look at ways to communicate your professional values and indicate that your service is a high quality one. We will do this through looking at the Culture Challenge Code of Conduct. Secondly, I'll take you through some best practice pointers for communication. Thirdly, we will look at the power of planning, and I will show you an example of a planning form and a booking form that you can use or adapt. Finally, we will look at feedback and evaluation by showing you some of the evaluation approaches outlined in the Culture Challenge Toolkit. Throughout, I'll invite you to reflect on how these approaches might be useful for you in your creative and cultural work with schools, however small your organisation. So let's look at ways to communicate your professional values and indicate that your service is a high quality one. Many of you will be sole traders, micro businesses or small charities, and you may or may not have strategic documents or have signed up to professional bodies or quality marks, and this is okay. In fact, this may seem a bit heavy-handed for many of you and does require some time, which I know is a precious commodity. However, I do believe that this is a good investment of your time. Practitioners who signed up for the Culture Challenge had to sign up for a code of conduct, which articulated the level of professionalism that clients would expect from them. Developing and sharing a code of conduct or signing up to a relevant quality mark can elevate any cultural education offer. It will give your service a much more professional feel and, if followed, build trust with schools and other clients. Think of it as a shorthand for quality. So let's go through the code of conduct document. Now, I suspect that all of you do all of this anyway, or at least aspire to. It's worth going through this document in full. Think about each statement and whether you could authentically agree to this. So, Culture Challenge providers are professional, and that means that you clearly communicate your services to schools and are upfront about charging a professional fee. You confirm bookings and provide relevant information to schools in a timely manner. You talk to teachers about what they hope to achieve, and you manage their expectations, and you operate your business matters in a legal way. You're reflective practitioners, so you actively seek feedback from teachers about your work. You listen to young people and teachers and learn and adapt as practitioners as a result. You welcome observations from teachers and perhaps the Culture Challenge team. And you regularly review or update your offer to young people and schools. You're safe practitioners. You take the physical safety of young people seriously, providing risk assessments if needed. You take the safeguarding of young people seriously, and you hold appropriate public liability insurance. You are an excellent practitioner. We are experienced in what we do, and we are committed to our own professional development. We share our knowledge and expertise to build the skills and confidence of young people. We have high expectations of what young people can achieve, and we encourage progress. And we have experience of working with young people and can provide references. Of course, you're creative practitioners. You create learning experiences that enable young people to try new things and excel in new ways. You provide a safe and non-judgmental arena that values the creative process as much as the outcome. And you recognise that all young people learn and grow in different ways. You're an inclusive practitioner. You enjoy working with young people and do not discriminate on gender, sexuality, belief, ability or ethnicity. And you work with teachers to adapt for the different needs of the young people that you work with. And we firmly believe that all young people have a right to enjoy, explore and create arts and culture. What would a code of conduct look like for your organisation or for you yourself? What values are most important to you? Think about your happiest clients. Why do they use you? What do you want to be known for? You could use ours and say that you've signed up to the Culture Challenge Code of Conduct, or you could make it smaller make it a statement or a vision statement, or just simply a commitment to quality statement. Another thing to think about is whether there are any professional quality marks that might be worth signing up for. Arts Award Supporter is worth looking at, but any quality mark builds trust and helps you develop your service. Again, it's shorthand for professionalism. So let's talk about communication. Good communication builds trust, and so many of the tools that you use every day can help with this, if you use them well. Not everyone needs a fancy website, but a web presence is important so that teachers can do a bit of research about you before booking you. So make sure you're listed on any relevant directories, such as the Culture Challenge or perhaps Creative Bedfordshire, or others relevant to your field. A professional, up-to-date and consistent social media presence can be just as good as a website, and LinkedIn may lend a bit of gravitas. You do not have to spend hours on these platforms to have them work for you, but you do need to be consistent. Also, and it seems obvious, but using email and voicemails well is crucial and is sometimes overlooked. In my years working with the cultural education sector, I have seen poor communication let excellent practitioners down, and ultimately it means that the schools and children miss out on working with you. So let's explore what good communication looks like by looking at the Communication Best Practice Guide by the Culture Challenge. So let's look at communication. Good communication goes an awful long way in building trusted relationships with schools. It allows the school to feel like they're in safe and professional hands, and it's really, really simple to do. Wherever you advertise your services, please make sure that you check regularly that your details are up to date and correct. So this just means remembering where you've advertised your stuff and perhaps checking it annually or perhaps twice a year, because people may find you, they may want to book you, and then if they ring you and that number no longer exists, you probably lost that booking. Use the tools that you have at your disposal: your voicemail, your out of office reply, and a professional email footer. A teacher that's calling a mobile number and you aren't able to answer, they would feel a lot better leaving a message for you if your voicemail was not a generic voicemail that just said your name, your service, and when you'll get back to them. An out-of-office reply can also be useful on your email, because many of us are delivering and don't get back to emails immediately like office-based workers might. So saying that you are out delivering and that you'll get back to them within the next couple of days is a good way to manage their expectations, and also make sure that they know that their email has got through to you and you will get back to them. An email footer is so useful. So if you've had contact with a school or a teacher, they may not have written your telephone number down, and if they need to get hold of you quickly, no doubt they'll search their emails for your name looking for a telephone number. If that's hidden in the body of an email that's, they may have sent 3 months ago, that's going to be tricky for them. If it's on your footer, that's so easy, and it might mean the difference between you getting a booking and not getting a booking. Now, always get back to people. If they call or email you, just please get back to them, because a teacher emailing you is gold dust, and that's what we all want. If you can't help them on the date that they want or for the particular activity they want, then please do get back to them and perhaps let them know what you can offer them or when you can work. It might lead to a booking, even if you can't do the thing that they're inquiring about. Be professional and to the point. Many creative people love to talk, and that's one of the beauties of creative people. However, teachers are really busy people. So if there's a brief, simply try and understand that you've understood the nature of the project and be concise in the outline of your response. Always signpost to other projects you've done and any web presence that you have or case studies that might be available. It's good practice to have a few kind of polished case studies available to you that you can just email to people. It allows you to be professional and also to signpost to really good work without it taking much of your time. The other thing to do, which again we often don't have time for, is to celebrate your successes. So that's where you'd put your case studies or your testimonials from school. Show potential clients how happy your past clients are. Teachers will trust other teachers. So if you can have a testimonial from a school on your website or on your Instagram, then that will really, really add value to your service and how you communicate it. So once you have a booking from a school, make sure you confirm the booking. Confirm it straight away, and then perhaps the week before the event, please do drop them a line and make sure that they know that all is well. This is extremely welcome from teachers. It makes them, again, feel safe and calm and that you are going to turn up. Request and listen to feedback. This is part of evaluation, which we'll go into in more detail later, but it's really important that your clients have an opportunity to tell you how it went. It can be quite simple, or it could be a form or a telephone conversation, but at least open up that discussion. Allow them to come back to you and tell them what went well and tell you what they'd like to improve. When you are shouting about your success, do make sure that you keep young people safe. So photographs are often tricky in schools because some children aren't able to be photographed. So when you are taking photos, seek guidance from the school. Perhaps use photographs that don't use faces. I think photographs can be extremely powerful in communicating what you do, but you do just have to be careful that you have permission to share the images that you might take. Finally, say thank you. So when you have had a booking from a school, perhaps when you're following up to ask for evaluation or feedback, make sure that you just say thank you, and perhaps book in another meeting for discussion about what you might want to do in the future, but be careful not to do the hard sell. So let's talk about planning. Good planning prevents so many problems. There are, broadly speaking, two aspects to planning in this sector. There's the creative planning of the activity, which considers the what and why of the activity or visit. And then there's the practical or logistical aspects, or the when, where, who and how much of the activity. Both things are important and impact on one another. You need to be clear on budget, venues and numbers in order for you to plan creatively. It's important to remember that the teacher booking you may have never done this before and may not be clear about what they want. If a client doesn't know what they want, or if you make assumptions about what they want, it's easy to get it wrong. By guiding them into articulating their wants and needs early in the conversation, you will both achieve better clarity and have more chance of success. I would always advise people to focus on what the outcomes are that they're looking to achieve and work back from there. Does your service allow for adaptation or development, or do you provide more of an off-the-shelf service? It's important to be authentic. Some schools might simply want something off the shelf, and their budget may not stretch to you developing something new for them. However, it might be simple for you to adapt your offer to really meet their needs. Often, linking a creative or cultural activity to schools' priorities is key. So you may want to consider how to lightly include aspects of, say, literacy, well-being or soft skills. Don't feel that you need to meet every curriculum need. They are booking you to provide something different to the school experience, but it is likely that you will need to be relevant to the school's curriculum in some way. The Culture Challenge offers two extremely useful documents to help you navigate these planning conversations: the planning form and the booking form. Let's look at them now. So let's have a look at the planning form. This document is extremely useful to help shape your initial conversation with the school. You may want to send it to the teacher before you meet so that they can begin to articulate their wants and needs and have conversations about budgets, timelines and outcomes with their colleagues before they talk to you. Or you may want to work through it in a meeting with the teacher, which would be my personal preference. Don't be afraid to talk about money. Be upfront and realistic. If you undersell yourself, you're actually hurting the rest of the sector. So look at your rates compared to others and charge a fair rate. You deserve it. So let's have a look at the planning form. You can talk to the teacher, firstly, about the type of activity that they are looking for. They might have a really fixed idea in their mind, or they might be more open-minded to you suggesting things. So look at what topic they're looking at covering, what's brought them to this conversation, and then ask them what their outcomes might be. They may have extremely clear ideas about what their outcomes are, and they may not have thought about it. So this is a really interesting conversation to have, because ultimately this will be your success measure. Talk about budget. Let's just talk about money up front. They'll be embarrassed, you'll be embarrassed, but you just have to talk about it. If they've got £500 to spend, or £50 to spend, or £5,000 to spend, that will help you with your creative planning. It will also help you know if you can actually take that booking for the amount of money that they have. And it gives them, if you are upfront about your fees, then it gives them a really realistic sense about what these things cost. Always remember to think about materials and travel costs. If you charge VAT, have that conversation up front. You then want to look at the participants. Which year groups are you working with? Is it a particular group of students in that year group? Do they have any particular needs? And how many would you be working with? Again, you can say that perhaps 30 children at a time is too many, and that you need to split a class into two. It may be that they are pleasantly surprised that you could deal with 60 children at a time. It very much depends on your art form or your cultural activity. Talk about dates. Planning for schools is often tricky, so getting their dates up front will really help things and help you know if you can take that booking. It's worth talking about the duration of the work. What do they mean by a workshop? Do they mean a whole day? Do they mean a lesson? Sessions that are too short won't help you. Sessions that are too long will exhaust you. So be clear about what they mean by a workshop or activity. The venue, obviously this is different if you are a venue and you've probably thought about everything, including, parking and risk assessments, but perhaps you are going to a different venue from the school. You'll need to discuss safety and access. If you are going to the school, it's still worth talking about venues. You don't want to do a clay workshop in a carpeted room, for example. So think about those things up front. Safeguarding. What sort of documentation do they require from you? And it may be your DBS check. They may need risk assessments. And it's also worth you asking them, what are their safeguarding policies? Just going with what the school safeguarding policy is absolutely fine. And different schools will have slightly different processes, but it's worth knowing what they are if you are going to be alone with the children. Talk about payment terms. So if you need to be paid within 2 weeks rather than 30 days, then let them know up front. It's worth talking about evaluation before or during your planning of the activity, because you will need to know what information you're gathering and what you want to be able to show. It might be that you would like the school themselves to do the evaluation. Being open to it really shows your level of professionalism and that you're a reflective practitioner. Documentation is important for everybody. So that means, will you film the session? Are photographs okay? Do you require photo release forms? Are there children in that particular group who can't be photographed? And they usually are. So think about how you might work around that. It might be that you ensure that a teacher or a teaching assistant is in charge of taking photographs. And sharing the activity. How will you share what you've learned? It could be that you share it with the rest of the school. It might be that you share it on your website or on your social media site, or that you create a case study. It's worth checking that they're okay with you sharing the details of their work. So next, let's look at the booking form. The booking form is a useful checklist to make sure you've covered all the bases, including times, dates, numbers, safeguarding, getting paid. You may wish to develop a more formal contract, but this form should cover all the bases. I would imagine that you'd be using a booking form a little bit later in your conversations with the school. So perhaps your initial conversation might be using the planning form, but when you're firming up the details of delivery, it's worth putting it into a booking form. This covers the contact details for both parties, risk assessment, safeguarding, evaluation, all of those things that you've actually covered in the planning form, but you're really pinning it down in this one. It articulates your budget and how you will be paid and whether you need a purchase order number. The date, time, setup times, finish times, where you're going to park. Can you park next to the room that you're delivering in if you've got heavy equipment? You ask them to clarify the number of participants and also the number of support staff, whether any of the children have special educational needs requirements. And again, go back to the outcomes. They might be the same as your initial conversation. You might have refined them. It takes you through everything from who's responsible for documenting the work, whether photographs can be shared, and also materials needed. As you know, many schools do have some materials or equipment that are available to be used, so you need to know what you're bringing and what they're going to supply. And just writing it down makes sure that everybody knows what's expected of them. Finally, let's talk about evaluation. Evaluation is a hugely important part of working as a reflective and therefore professional practitioner. This should be considered in two ways. Firstly, gathering feedback about your services, perhaps workshop by workshop or trip by trip, to see if your clients are happy and whether your activities are achieving what you set out to achieve. Secondly, it's beneficial to look at your service as a whole. How are you developing in your creative practice over time? How are you growing and improving? Think of it as a cycle of continuous improvement of plan, do, reflect, adapt and repeat. Evaluation should be helpful to you in your professional development. Before you think about how to gather evaluation data, think about what your success measures are. In terms of your own development, how would you know if you were doing a good job? It might be that you attract repeat bookings, that you're happy in your work. It might be the quality of the artistic output that you achieve with the children, or that children experience joy when they're working with you. These success measures and how you are doing against them might require an annual moment of reflection, and you might like to think about how you might measure these things and what data you might need. You may wish to look at feedback from your workshops or visits, or take time to check in with regular clients for a more in-depth reflection conversation. In terms of evaluation of your services to schools, it is important to identify how your work meets their needs. Was the activity successful in meeting their aims? Were they happy? Do they have any recommendations for improvement? This might be best captured through a simple form, but before you develop a feedback form, think about what you're going to do with the data. Will you simply skim read it? Will you log it? Do you need to gather feedback for every activity? It's really important to be realistic. The Culture Challenge has a range of resources to help you. Let's take a look at some of them, and you can see which resources might be useful to you, but I would encourage you to look at the whole evaluation section of the toolkit because there's a lot in there. Okay, so let's look at feedback forms for young people and children. In the Culture Challenge toolkit, you'll find two feedback forms that you could use just off the shelf if they meet your needs. One of them is a young people's survey and one of them is a children's survey. So they're just adapted for the different age ranges. Within the children's survey, they are able to just tick whether they enjoyed the workshop and articulate their favourite part and their least favourite part. It asks, did they learn something new? That's quite a useful one. And it asks, how did it make them feel or think? And also, what other kinds of arts and crafts would they like to try? We have found that when this has been adapted for different venues and what have you, having a box where they can draw their favourite thing can be really, really interesting, and it's very easy for you to kind of codify what they're drawing and see what really jumped out at them as their favourite part. Other forms might use smiley faces or other emojis for them to circle. And it depends on how young the child is, whether they're going to be able to deal with a form with this many words. But this gives you something to start with. The Young People Survey is something very similar, but it gives them more chance to just tell you about their views on the workshop. So it's got more free text boxes. And like all Culture Challenge resources, these are free for you to use or adapt. Of course, you might want to gather feedback primarily from the children, or you might want to focus more on the adults in the room. Personally, I find that asking the teachers for feedback gathers much more useful information, although it's really good to ask the children as well. So there's a form available for you that you can use or adapt. It's called Questions for Teachers, and it's a 2-page document that has their name, their school, so you can identify them in the future. And they get to tick some boxes to say whether the children were engaged in the session, whether the session leader was good at engaging or working with the children, and whether the children learnt a lot from the session. My favourite question on this form is, were there any highlights or light bulb moments or unexpected outcomes for the children? Because they usually are. Sometimes their children respond differently to your creative practice than they would do in the classroom, and that's a really beautiful thing to have them reflect on. Again, another tick box that covers whether the session addressed curriculum needs. It might be that actually isn't relevant because maybe they didn't want it to. Whether the session covered art forms or techniques that they could otherwise not do, and that they learnt things themselves as a teacher that they can now put into practice. It's got free text boxes to describe whether there was anything else that they found helpful or useful, what they found was the best thing about the session, and anything that could be improved. The final box is a bit of a sales box, which is what other types of session are you interested in, and that gives you a way in to have other bookings. Another really useful form that's available in the Culture Challenge Toolkit is the Workshop Leader or Teacher Observation Sheet. This is my favourite resource in terms of evaluation. As you are delivering your visit, your tour, your workshop, give the accompanying teachers one of these sheets and see what happens. When you give them these sheets, you are giving them the task of really observing their children and how they may be engaging or not engaging with your work. This is where they're really looking for those light bulb moments. So you're giving them some free text boxes that ask them to look for evidence that their children are enjoying the session, whether they're engaged, whether it's suitable for the age group, any light bulb moments, anything that surprised them about the creative or artistic response to the exercises, and anything else. I've found that this particular form gives really, really juicy feedback and also pulls out things that the teachers themselves may not have observed. It also pulls in the teachers as an active participant in the group. Even though it's an observer, you're giving them the task. So they have to give you that form afterwards, which means that they're kind of on side. So really useful. Give it a go, see how it goes. There are many ways to evaluate, and forms are an easy way, but might not be the best way for all of your clients and age groups that you're working with. There are a number of activities that are available to you in the Culture Challenge Toolkit. A simple one that I'm showing you here is using post-it notes. So instead of asking each individual child to fill in a form about what they thought about their activity, you could just do a nice big bit of flip chart paper, give them all some coloured post-its, and either codify the colours of the post-its for, whether they liked it or they didn't like it, or have them stick them on different areas of that flip chart. It will give you a rough idea, and it will give you the same data as whether you've brought in 30 feedback forms. You'd simply just count 30 post-its on your flip chart paper. This could work with students particularly well. What you might want to do for teachers or older children is adapt it so that they can write their comments on a post-it note and then put the post-it note on the relevant part of the flip chart that you have made available to them. It's really quick and easy, and if you just make a note of how many children liked it or loved it or didn't like it or really hated it, then that will start giving you data for that annual professional reflection activity. And it will show you very quickly if something's gone badly wrong, and it will show you very quickly when you're onto a winner. So that's a nice easy win and engaging method of evaluation. Within the evaluation part of the toolkit, you'll also find more creative activities for evaluation, such as graffiti boards or using postcards. I think that you could have a look at that, and you're all creative people, so you could come up with suggestions. It's just ways to engage, to open out that conversation about people's feedback, and importantly, you have to find a way of recording that's going to be useful to you as a practitioner who's evolving and growing and always getting better. So that's a whistle-stop tour through the Culture Challenge Toolkit, and that's just some of the resources available to you. We're not saying that they're the best, they just are there for you to use or adapt, and we hope that they help you in continuing to provide children, young people and schools access to the wonderful creative and cultural activities that you have to offer. Thanks for listening.